Okay, today I'm taking a look at the Segway Ninebot Max. I've had this thing for about a year and a half. I got it in March in 2020, and it's now October 2021. So I've had this thing for a while, and I put a lot of miles on it, and I absolutely love it. This is definitely my favorite scooter. I've ridden this, I've ridden that, and I've ridden one other scooter. So I got two scooters here, and the reason I'm doing that is just so I can have something I can compare against so that I can explain why I still feel like this one's the best. Now, with that being said, I do really like this scooter, and the reason I like this scooter is because it has solid tires. One of the things that's kind of a bummer about this one is anytime I want to take it out for a ride, I have to fill up the tires. Now, if it's like a couple days, it's not really a big deal, but if it's more than a week, then I try and fill up the tires. You always got to check that, it's for safety more than anything. But with this one being solid tires, if I just want to take it out and go get the mail, something like that, this one's the best just because I can turn it on and just go. And the only other thing that I think that this one does really well that this one doesn't do is that it has two brake levers. And the reason that that's good is because if you're going from riding a bicycle like I am, you're used to having your main brake being on the right. So on a bicycle, that's the rear brake. If I'm on a bicycle and I squeeze the left trigger, then that's going to lock up that front brake and I'm going to flip end over end. So I'm used to always using the rear brake on a bicycle and then using the front brake if I need it. With the Segway, we have the throttle on the right and we have the brake on the left. So if you're used to using the right lever as the brake and then you go to grab it and it's not there, that can kind of jolt you a little bit. So you have to get used to using the left lever as the brake. Obviously, if you squeeze the brake and it's not there, not only you're going to be jolted, but you're going to brake a little bit later, could potentially cause an accident. Hasn't happened to me yet, but it is something that I've got in the back of my mind, especially if it's a new user. I want to make sure that they're well aware the brake is on the left. Now, with that being said, this has regenerative braking. And so what that means is that this is going to last for a lot longer of a ride than this one will, because anytime you're going downhill, or if you just let off the gas, it's going to start automatically braking using the motor in the back of the scooter. So if you're going downhill, that's going to give you a much longer ride, but it's also going to preserve the actual brake in the front. I've had this scooter for a year and a half. I've ridden it a lot, and I'm still on the original brake. If I tried to ride this the way that I rode this, I would have to be replacing the brakes all the time. So this one I definitely use for any kind of commute. It's great for going around town. It's really nice having this on account of, like, if my car breaks down, I've still got a potential way of getting to work. But the main reason that I've got this is because I've got a bicycle over there and I like riding that thing a lot, but there does come a time where I'm just too tired to ride it and I still want to go out and I still want to have a good time, and this does that for me. Now, these both have 350 watt motors, but this one works a heck of a lot better. And by that, what I mean is I'm a really big dude. And if I try to go uphill on these two scooters, this one's going to go about 14 miles an hour. This one's going to go somewhere between 7 and 10 miles an hour on the same hill. Even though they're both 350 watt motors, this one is just much more efficient. I don't know why. They're both 350 watt, whatever. All I know is this one does work better. On top of that, on the day it will actually overheat. So even when I get to the top of the hill and I'm on a nice straightaway where I would normally be able to go full speed, I can't do that until it cools down. On the Segway, I've never had that problem. This thing just carries me much better than any other scooter. And on top of that, it just feels more solid. So this one does not have a suspension on it, which on this one, it does have a suspension, which, it's really nice. But with my weight on it, it actually starts to feel kind of spongy, right? It might be better for a lighter rider, but for me, it's not that great because it kind of feels like it wants to kick out from underneath me, especially if I'm doing a really tight turn. On this one, it just feels like a brick. It just feels like there's something solid underneath me whenever I'm riding this one. Even though it feels solid, even though there's no suspension, the fact that it has pneumatic tires, it has air tires, makes it feel as soft as this one as far as going over bumps and rocks and stuff like that. The comfort of the ride feels about the same to me. So the trade-off with the solid tires and the suspension is you can take this thing out right away. You don't have to worry about airing it up. With this one, you have to air it up, but it feels much stronger. One of the first things I did when I got this was I got this phone holder. It's by Gub. It's really nice. I use the same thing on my bicycle. Segway has their own brand out right now. I mean, you can get that. I just like this one, so I keep on using that. And I also noticed that there is a small difference in the length of this board. So the length of the board, it's not really a huge deal. Like the overall length, it's like maybe 1 inch longer, and I think the length of the board is 1 or 2 inches longer. So it's not a big deal, but when you got huge feet like me, every little bit actually really matters. So aside from it just feeling more solid, it just feels more comfortable to ride for a long period of time. And the only other thing is, because this has regenerative braking, it will automatically slow you down when you're going downhill. Now for me, when I first started riding that, I hated it. Like, I really didn't like it at all, because for me, when I'm on my bicycle, my reward at the end of the day, like, I'll go up the hill and then my reward is I go down the hill and I just blast it at like 30, 40 miles an hour. And that feels great. Like, it's such a nice reward for that ride. So when I got on the Segway and I took it up that hill and then I drove back down, it maxed out at about 20 miles an hour. And that was a real bummer. Even with my weight weight on it. Even, going downhill, the regenerative braking took over and it kept me from going too fast. So I didn't like that. Now, when I started riding the Idea, on the other hand, it doesn't have regenerative braking. So the only braking you're going to get is if you squeeze the trigger. So you can go as fast as you really want to. And I got this thing going much faster than I should have. And it was at that point that I realized that scooters are not as stable as a bicycle. Like it got real scary there for a minute. So after going at that speed on the Idea, I never want to go that fast again on a scooter. So at first I hated that feature on the Segway, but now it's like, it's a must-have for me. I want to have a good time, but I want to be safe. I don't want to feel uncomfortable, and the Segway does that for me. So for me, I love both of these scooters, but if I had to get just one, it would definitely be the Segway.